That's an intro.
Welcome back to my channel, Cooking Slow with Natalia. Today we are making something that I really love making for guests when I'm entertaining. It works really well as a starter. People always think you've spent a lot of time on it and it looks way more complicated and fancy than it actually is. So we're going to be making tuna tostadas. They're very simple to make, and I love interactive food, stuff that you can eat with your hands. That makes me really happy, especially at a dinner party. I also love the kind of thing you can like put in the middle of the table and people just grab it themselves because it takes the pressure off plating. So really simple. Tuna is the main ingredient. You could use salmon if you prefer salmon. I will keep my tuna in the fridge wrapped up until the very last second because it oxidizes once you've opened it. It can turn a sort of like dark gray, bluey color. So you want to keep, retain that lovely sort of like pink, jewelly, tuna flesh color, delish. But yes, I'll leave it wrapped up until literally the very last minute. We'll talk more about the safety of eating raw fish when we get to that section. But for now, I want to talk about the ingredients that we've got on the table. So this is essentially all of the ingredients that I'm going to be using that are fresh. We've got a lovely avocado here, which we will use just to make a simple guac, and it's going to be the base of the tostada, and it'll give like a nice element of creaminess. We've got some ginger here, which has realistically seen better days, but don't be afraid of that because if you just cut the outside off, the inside will be lovely and yellow, I'm sure, I hope. 1 garlic clove, we've got some chili, spring onion. This is parsley, which I don't like coriander. I unfortunately have the gene that makes it taste like soap, which is very much to my detriment. So I use I use parsley, but if you, airplane. So I use parsley because I don't like coriander, and actually, allegedly, the reason it tastes like soap to me is because I have normal enzymes in my mouth, and apparently the people who enjoy the flavor of coriander don't have a normal enzyme. This is all alleged. I read it once upon a time, maybe even just saw it on a TikTok, I don't know, but it makes me feel better about myself, so we'll go with it. And then just... It went from being really factual to you being like, you're wrong. No, I'm pretty sure it's true.
You said something about an evolution or like a
oh yeah. No, that was you. You were like, I'm a mutant.
Oh, so
and I said, yes, you are an alien.
And
well, no, yeah, that's apparently what it is that I'm what the flavor should be and you're what the flavor isn't. So you have something wrong with you. So yeah, you can use coriander if you want, but I'm using parsley, and then loads of lime juice. And then I have some toasted sesame seeds, which I will need to replenish soon, black and white. And then over here are my 2 main ingredients. I'm going to be using ponzu, which is essentially just like a lemon flavored, not olive oil, soya sauce, citrusy flavor. So this one, I believe, has a mixture of yuzu and regular lemons. Yuzu is just a different variety of lemon. And then this is just some toasted sesame oil. I prefer the toasted one. It's much nuttier and stronger in flavor, but you can use just a regular one. These are my corn flour tortillas. I've bought these in America because I find they're so much easier to find there. However, you will find them in places like Whole Foods, Planet Organic. They might cost you an arm and a leg, but you can also find them in like specialty shops, I'm sure. However, if you cannot get hold of any and you can only find sort of big, even if they're just whole wheat, it will work as well. I used to use a cup and I would sort of use the rim of a cup to cut out the shape because that is more or less the same size, and then you can just make smaller ones. And with the leftovers, you could fry those off and just create little like chips for salsa. Or even just use them as like a breadcrumb or whatever, like a crispy topping. It could work quite nicely. I've just got a little hex clad. This is non-stick. It doesn't really matter because you're going to use quite a lot of oil if it's non-stick or not. I prefer doing these one at a time. I find I'm a bit more accurate with it if I do that, but you can by all means do them all at once. I'm using sunflower oil. You don't really want to use olive oil for this. It's just really that much that you need. It's not loads. So you kind of just want the tortilla to be slightly submerged. So we'll get that up to temperature. You can see that the oil is dancing a little bit. That's an indicator that it's ready. Obviously be super careful, this is hot oil. Just going to put that in and it starts sort of bubbling straight away. That's a good sign. And you're sort of just going to fry it on both sides until it goes crispy. The edges will crisp up a lot faster than the middle. I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing because often when you eat a tostada, if it's crisp all the way through, it kind of breaks apart loads. Whereas if the middle is ever so slightly still chewy, it's easier for it to stay sort of intact as you're eating it. And then just have some paper towel on a plate ready to rest that on. That looks good to me. And that will just catch all of the leftover residual oil. You can even just tap all the rest off and then just repeat. So this is really hot now. So it's gonna happen a lot quicker. So that's good. And again, just popping that on there. Now they're hard, so they're a nice shell and will have a good snap to them around the edges. The next thing we're going to do is the avocado. So I keep this fairly simple because I quite like the fish to be the sort of star of the show. So just cutting this, hoping it's a good one. It's done. Just scooping this out. Get rid of that. And again, just scoop out. Oh, it's actually really soft. The skin is super soft. My spoon just went straight through it. Add salt. A little bit of black pepper as well. Lime juice. If your lime this feels like a juicy one, which is good, but if your limes don't feel juicy, you can just roll them on the table and it does help. I find when cutting limes, I actually avoid the center and I'll cut them like that. I just find them so much easier to juice because you can just squeeze that like this. And like really, really get the juice out. And then with the middle part, I know you're gonna be like, oh, it's so wasteful. But either you can save the middle part for when you're doing drinks. You can also cut this end off like so. If you have one of those big juicy thingies, then obviously you can do that, but it's just, you know. You could, if you wanted to, you could cube this really finely and do it like that, but it doesn't really, to me, it doesn't make that much of a difference. And I quite like the textural difference because we're going to be cubing the fish. I like the textural difference for this to be more creamy. All right, now that that's mashed, just taste it, see if it needs any salt, pepper, lime juice. Oh, it's super limey. Woo! Love it. So next, I'm just going to prepare the marinade. In here, we are going to do some garlic, which again, I'm grating it, especially, I mean, you want it to be as fine as possible for something like this. I hate cutting it, you know that about me. And grating it is just a lot easier. So we'll do that. And then follow that with some grated ginger. So just want to roughly chop this as kind of fine as you can. I would like this spring onion to kind of match the size of the garlic and ginger, which is obviously teeny tiny. So we'll just do that and then kind of rough chop it to get it nice and small. And then that is all going into there. So because I've made my guac really limey, I'm going to go easy on the lime juice in here because we're also using ponzu, which I said before is like a, it's like a lemony, citrusy soy sauce. And then a little bit of this. Just mix that around. Just going to cut the chili up because I'm going to bring the fish out in here, so I just want everything ready and done. I am only really going to use that much. It's just going to be for garnish. I like it to be in little tiny cubes when it comes to garnishing because I find like obviously sometimes it looks really nice when you have those sort of thick rounds of chili, but I like it to be evenly dispersed through the food rather than just having one bite that has loads of chili on it and then one bite that doesn't. So again, doing a little julienne and then cubing it from there. Those are going to be to serve. I'm going to go get the tuna now. my tuna. When it comes to using raw fish, it's that you'll hear a lot about like making sure it's sushi grade. That essentially just means that the fish has been frozen upon it being sort of killed. Oh my God. Sorry, I just hit a wasp and I don't like hitting them in case they hit me back. When you kill fish, you want to freeze it because that kills all the parasites within it that would make you ill. And then once you bring it back up to temperature, it's safe to eat raw. That is what's happened here. That is what has happened to most supermarkets that sell you fish. You just want to get the highest possible quality and the freshest fish as possible because then the flavor is just going to be so much better. And also, ideally, you want it to be sustainably caught. So it's so much better to go to your fishmonger, have a conversation with them and get the best possible quality and most sustainable fish. You want to cut the fish into cubes. I quite like them to be fairly small-ish. Some people like them to be bigger. It's totally up to you and your preference. So that is that thick. I would probably cut that into 3 slices. So that's 1 slice. It's kind of like when you cut steak, you always want to be cutting against the grain rather than with it. I'm going to layer them back on top of each other as they were. Cut down. So let's flip around. Into little cubes. We're just going to put the cubed tuna into our marinade mix and then just mix that around. It's a good thing that tonight your pottery class isn't a date because you're gonna absolutely stink of garlic. So give that a little taste. Yeah, it's so good. It's so punchy. I love that. We're gonna grab a tostada, grab a little bit of your guac, spoon that into the center, give it a little mush around, and then go in with the tuna. Garnish it with some sesame seeds and then a little bit of chili as well. Looks really yummy. With these, you want to eat them sort of as quickly as possible because there's lime juice and citrus in the ponzu in your marinade, and that is kind of, it's called ceviche when you basically cook raw fish with citrus. So the longer you leave it in the marinade, the more it's essentially going to cook through. This is going to be really messy to eat, I just know it, but let's go for it anyway. Yeah, so good. Damn good. Actually having the like slightly chewy bit in the middle really works with taking bites. So it's so crisp on the edge, as you can hear from me crunching it, that it doesn't all like collapse and fall in your hand, which is really quite handy because I said this was going to be messy and actually it's been pretty damn clean. No, I think you'll be all right. If you make that for someone, they'll be like, oh my God, you made an effort. Gentle. Oh, so gentle.